Bay Area Brawler, Skylar Greenberg, and your Colonial Champion, Sean McCourt. Welcome to the Court-Martail Podcast!
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, and anything in between, welcome to the Court-Martail Podcast, the podcast made by wrestling fans, for wrestling fans, and we're here to review Backlash, St. Louis 2025. It is an incredible time to be alive and here in living color. But there is no cult of personality here, and he wasn't on the show, and we haven't seen him since WrestleMania, but that doesn't mean that this show is bereft of personality, because there is nothing more personable than listening to two guys, burgers and fries, describe everything that you ever want to hear about professional wrestling, and that's what we've been doing for almost 5 years now. Actually, over 5 years now, because the first real episode took place in 2020 with the Edge Royal Rumble review, and here we are so many years later, but I am not here by myself as your Colonial Champion, Sean McCarty, because with me, by my side, is the man of the hour, is the man with the power. He is too sweet to be sour, and he does not mind at all that I completely ripped that for Billy Graham, just like most people ripped most of Billy Graham off. So it really is just the nature of the business itself. The Bay Area Brawler himself, hockey extraordinaire, Skylar Greenberg. How you doing, buddy?
I'm doing good. I'm doing good here with all you Court-Martail podcast people. I'm back from my vacation. I went to Europe for a little bit, and I had fun there. Unfortunately, I did get chopped by a big Austrian.
Well, that does happen from time to time when you go to Europe. I mean, I'm heading out to England later, so I'm expecting to be stretched to some degree, or I'm going to get Claymore. Well, no, I'm not going to Scotland. I'm going straight to England. But maybe William Regal will be there, and that will hurt. And he'll just punch me with some brass knucks in the middle of the street. But that does have, we do get assaulted by wrestlers just randomly when we're out in foreign countries. It's just the nature of the business. But it's nice to have you back, Skylar. You missed our WrestleMania review, and we sorely missed you. We missed a lot of news, and, you know, we'll slowly catch everybody up as things start to develop with things like AAA and things along those lines, and we'll get ourselves a proper news of the week review here in before too long. But why don't you, before we get sink our teeth too into this, why don't you give us a real Spark Note summary of how you felt about Mania, what has happened thereafter, and kind of set the stage for us heading into this pay-per-view review.
So I did miss WrestleMania mostly because I was dealing with stuff at the time. But as I was watching the shows later on afterwards, I kind of came to the same conclusion that you guys did, in that, one, WrestleMania 41 did not match 40, but how could it, right?
Yeah, for sure.
But beyond that, the build to WrestleMania 41 was off the entire time. And me, you, and Joshua in our private group chat have had different debates, but I came to the same conclusion you guys did, is that WrestleMania's build has been off ever since the Royal Rumble winners were picked. And we've seen how those Royal Rumble winners have gone on to do both good and terrible things, quote unquote.
In the most literal form.
And it just kind of leads to, like, the awkwardness of WWE. They're no longer in a hot period. They're kind of now cooling down, partially because it was hard to sustain that hot period that they had.
Of course.
But more to kind of like the tune of it, it feels like we're in a malaise as we're waiting for things to happen that can't happen quite yet. And to be honest, that's kind of what Backlash feels like, is that we're waiting to get to a certain point, but we're not there yet, but we're just going to do this show anyways. And it felt very fillery in a way, kind of like an anime's filler arc while we're waiting for the main stuff to happen again.
It's Merrick versus Mai. For those of you who understand what that reference is coming from.
No, this is the whole Cyber World arc that happened in the middle of the first and second rounds of the Duel Monsters World Tournament.
Oh, you mean the like when they go in and they have to fight like the big five, and that random kid
and
Noah
Noah
just
Kaiba.
abducts them out of nowhere. Yeah, you're so right. You're so right.
That was also when they introduced the whole concept of deck masters, which honestly, real Yu-Gi-Oh should have deck masters. That would be a cool concept.
My favorite video game they ever made was Yu-Gi-Oh! Duelist of the Roses, and that basically centers around a deck leader that you move around the board. So I'm all for the idea of a deck master. And it's so funny because I was just watching those episodes like 3 days ago. And for just some reason, I just flicked it back on, and that's where I had left off the last time I'd logged on. And it's just, it's so funny because it's all about backstory. It's like more filling in like Kaiba's backstory, but it is a major reroute. And they did that so many times in that anime. They did that with the capsule monsters, the dungeon dice monsters, that like random feud that Yugi had with that girl.
Rebecca Hawkins, who we never have to mention ever again.
That's right. Well, because unless that becomes the name of a star here in WWE, which remains to be seen. Because Rebecca Hawkins that sounds too normal for WWE now. But
yes, as we know from Jim Cornette and Brian Last's game of WWE wrestler or porn star name.
Yeah, Rebecca Hawkins sounds like a porn star name, to be sure. But speaking of people who resemble porn stars, we are not the only two people reviewing this show. Roll that intro.
It's time for Joshageddon's Notes of the Week. It's time for his Notes of the Week. Oh, yeah.
Sean, I don't think Joshua is a porn star. He is the furthest thing away from that. He's just a good Christian boy.
That we know of. He could totally lead a secret double life. He is back with well, in any case, let's get to his report. Greetings to all second-rate dilettante. Fuck that word. I'm not reading that. And all of
Dilettante?
Yeah, that's exactly what I said. And all the insufferable quivering puddles of mass who listen to this program and pretend to enjoy professional wrestling. It is I, Grammar Notes Joshageddon. Grammargeddon, question mark? Here to discuss my thoughts on the first pay-per-view after WrestleMania 41, Backlash. As both Sean and Skylar know, Backlash is a favorite of mine, specifically the 2009 iteration, even though he is not already a perfectly married man. Fortunately for us all, The Rock was unable to fuck up this pay-per-view, and we ended up with a pretty kick-ass 2.5-hour block of wrestling. Everything was enjoyable, much like this podcast. Like, comment, and subscribe. Damn it, Sean didn't Google these JPEGs for nothing, you cheap slut. I'm sorry that Joshageddon is just berating you, the loyal colonists of the Court-Martail podcast.
Hey, a lot of these people are used to Dave Meltzer talking shit about them.
Well, you know what? You're right. Actually, fans probably get more abuse from people than anyone else. And not for nothing, it's deserved most of the time, but that's a different story. Anywho, more details down below as we break down the event. So... So before we get into the meat of the matter, as it's said, I want to first talk, because Joshageddon just laid it out here, about Dr. Dwayne. Because Skylar, you were the thing that was missing the most from our WrestleMania 41 review was your very well-deserved victory lap about The Rock. So I just want to give you the moment to get up on your pedestal and talk about how much The Rock, what is his influence now, and what are we going to have to prepare for going forward with Dr. Dwanye's influence, and the fact that he threw Triple H under the bus in that McAfee interview?
What you're just going to have to recognize is the fact that Dwayne The Rock Johnson does what Dwayne The Rock Johnson always does and makes it about himself when it's convenient for him, despite what anybody else may or may not think.
Yeah, and he's nearly ruined 2 WrestleManias, but they salvaged the first one. This one, the damage was already done, a la Travis Scott. But it's going to be difficult now because it feels like The Rock is always going to be like that cloud looming overhead. You know, and you never know when the lightning's going to strike down and he's going to show up and say something and then just disappear back into the clouds.
And that's the problem, is that Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson cannot wait to insert himself into something when it suits him and his needs. And each of the three of us have moments where if Dwayne does something in particular, we're done. My thing is that if he puts the belt on himself in the next 2 or 3 years, and I know he's going to do it, and I hate that he's going to do it, but I know he's going to.
He's going to want to. I don't know if he's going to be able to. I don't know if there's enough safeguards in place to stop him from doing it, but if right now he's still being told no and kind of working with it, even though I still think he has a grudge of not being able to do Rock and Roman when The Rock wanted to because the fans were like, no, this is Cody's moment, get the fuck out of here. And it's just, to me, I know at some point, and they've kind of got a better Rock and Roman story now than they did before, because it's pretty funny, because when The Rock came along and made WrestleMania 40 all about himself, it cost Roman Reigns the championship. Even though it's supposed to be about them, it ended up being, more about The Rock, and now Roman has had to deal with the repercussions of that. He's lost all of his family, he's lost Paul Heyman, and it's really The Rock's fault when you get right down to it. But the problem is, are we ever going to see that match?
Especially with the thing that Roman said that after his current contract expires, which we know is in the next couple of years, he's going to move away from wrestling and go into Hollywood because it will make him more money.
And then he will have this storyline built in when he comes back and, does his farewell tour. But it's... And I'm not surprised. I mean, Roman at this point, he's had leukemia. He deserves it. At this point, Roman deserves it, right? It's just that it's... The insincerity of The Rock is the thing that bothers me most about all of this. It's just... And he thinks that he can save himself when he comes here to his safe house, and I just don't want him to feel welcome in that safe house. But I think a lot of the people have seen through it as a result of what happened at WrestleMania 41 and how he responded afterwards. And I wouldn't be surprised if the next time he comes back, it is not the reception that he thinks it's going to be, let alone the unprofessionalism of him being drunker than a skunk most of the time he's out there.
Well, here's the problem, though, is that people are still going to boo him. And because they're going to boo him, he's going to think that he's doing something right. It's kind of like what
Chris Jericho,
what people thought AEW was doing when they were getting boos for Jack Perry. That's not the type of boos you want.
That's Chris Jericho's whole line of reasoning. That's been his line of reasoning for the past 3.5 years. People have been actively telling him to go away, and he's going, I'm doing my job. No, Chris. But the problem is, The Rock has been indulged for this theology since 2011. And that's the problem, is he's now believes that because he's been told he can do no wrong, he can do no wrong. And it's going to be a place where it's going to be very interesting to see just how much is going to be in flux, because there is seemingly a internal power struggle between Triple H and what he's trying to do in The Rock, and whenever he feels like doing something.
And the problem is that now Triple H has to scramble and figure out what the heck he's going to do if he doesn't have The Rock available for things. The one thing that hurts right now with WWE's current structure and the way it is, and we'll get to it when we get to the main event, The Rock's absence and lack of explanation for why he did the thing he did at Elimination Chamber hurts the main act of WWE right now.
No, he did explain it. It was because the Elimination Chamber numbers were down, which they weren't, by the way. They had 3,000 tickets left to sell, and they were going to sell them. And The Rock tried to go, oh yeah, ticket sales were down, so they called in The Rock to get involved, and they told me that that's all they needed me for. Fucking bullshit. You're so full of shit. Your eyes, everything about you is brown. That's going to get us in trouble.
Sean yelling at the brown man for being too brown.
Editor, you know what to do. I ain't touching this one. You're on your own, kid.
Anyways, let's get to the actual show. before we get canceled, if we are
I think
already.
that's a good place to stop talking about The Rock. And let's move on to the first match.
Who in St. Louis? Here in Backlash.
Oh, man. Oh,
and we
God.
start the show off with Michael Cole and Wade Barrett.
Woo! Who were great on the night. Wade Barrett was fantastic. We'll talk about it later in a second as we recover here when what may be our last podcast. The backlash of what...
I'm not going to lie. I kind of was a little miffed when they took Corey Graves off, and we still don't know why, and we still aren't sure why. But Wade Barrett's an absolutely adequate replacement.
Well, Wade Barrett is really coming to his own as a personality, but he isn't so dramatic about it the way that Corey could be. And I do miss Corey Graves, but I also think, A, they were trying to have another kid. B, Corey Graves took going back to NXT as a demotion, and therefore he got offended, so I'm sure that there's some level of like, all right, go home and let's have some heat die down. Because I don't think he's out of contract.
But I think it's very clear that he isn't the guy to be the voice anymore.
Well, and, honestly, I never really cared for his play-by-play. It's fine, but I've never really cared for his play-by-play. I think they need somebody more organic in that position, and I don't really know if they have a replacement right now. Wade did a great job. I'm not going to lie, but, I don't know if Wade is, the ultimate voice of the WWE right now, and I think they're still hunting for it.
Well, it's still Michael Cole.
Well, yeah, and it's probably still going to be Michael Cole for a while, but we're not going to have Michael Cole for forever. I've really come to respect Michael Cole in these years that he's allowed to be himself. It's...
Especially because he later on basically helps make one of the matches.
Yeah, and he got cheered. He got some of the best cheers on the night, which is wild. But that goes to show just how just letting somebody be them can really just turn people's opinions around about somebody.
So wait, hold on. The way that Michael Cole got over is by letting him be a weenie?
Yeah, but a natural weenie. They let him be just his regular weenie, not Vince's forced weenie through his earpiece.
Not a pre-packaged, multi-indulged, what do you call it? No chemicals, no inserts.
Yes. No.
It's all natural weenie.
Yes, all natural, non-GMO, just pure organic weenie. USDA graded. Grade A weenie. But we began, speaking of, I was actually cooking salmon while this opening match was taking place. I was eating with my family. So I didn't see the first half of this match coming up. It's Drew McIntyre versus LA Knight versus Jacob Fatu versus Damian Priest. And maybe you could catch me up on some spots that they did. I figured I probably didn't miss much because I came in right when LA Knight had a tree of woe on Drew McIntyre and hit him with the knee. And then Fatu started wrecking everybody, so it must have been 2/3 of the way through this match. Because it was just picking up as I got into it.
Basically, this match was your multi-man car crash match, which for the show that we had and the matches that were on it, it was good to open. The first maybe 5 or 10 minutes of this match was each of the four men getting a chance to get their shit in. They did the shine for LA Knight.
Right.
Then they did the shine for Drew McIntyre. Then they did the shine for Damian Priest. Then they did the absolute selling for Jacob Fatu, who is easily one of the best wrestlers right now on the roster.
Yeah, whether he knows it or not, he's got a rocket ship strapped to his back. I don't know if anyone's really lit the fuse yet, though, which is insane to think about.
And the other thing, too, is that he's supposed to be a heel, but he's getting over as a babyface already.
I think him being him is getting wildly over. He's going to get the level of organically over, although justified, that Braun Strowman run did, but there's going to be actual work to back it up. He's going to be a major star in the next 3 to 5 years. He's going to be a huge drawing factor for the WWE.
He is. The only thing that kind of concerns me is anytime big man does big splash, I get worried about those knees.
True. True.
Like, I love that he does the moonsault. I love that he did a swanton. Like, holy fucking crap.
Yeah.
But please don't. Like, we had that scare at last SummerSlam where he did that thing from the top rope. He did the moonsault, and his knee buckled on the table.
Yeah. Although that ended up being a work, though. That just ended up being him selling really well. But it still scared the shit out of us.
Nasty.
Oh,
And it looked like it could have happened.
Oh, yeah. It definitely did. And but that just goes to show how amazing Fatu is at selling. You know, let alone him dominating everybody and doing the boogeyman shake and all that stuff, which is all great. But the way that he sells is really remarkable. And it's and as people were walking down to the ring, I said, oh yeah, or they were in this with the Tree of Woe and Drew and all that stuff. And as I was writing down the names for who was in this, I genuinely forgot that Damian Priest was in it. And is that not kind of a sign of what Damian Priest has become?
I think Damian Priest was a good mid-card world champion.
Yeah.
I hate to say it, but the World Heavyweight Championship is the Super Intercontinental Championship.
Well, it didn't feel like that with certain people, but it does feel like that with others, like Jey Uso. But when Gunther had it, prestigious. When Seth Rollins had it, he worked his ass off to make that feel like it meant something.
Yeah, it's just that Damian Priest, in a sea of WWE that has a lot of very, very interesting personalities, or impressive big men, or very good promos, or very good ring workers, Damian Priest is good, but not excellent at any one particular thing. And that's what kind of hurts him. He's a jack of all trades, master of none.
Yeah, I hate to use a comparison like Cesaro, but it always feels like there's something missing from Damian Priest. In the same way, it always feels like there's something missing from Cesaro. Except for the match he had with Roman Reigns, which was downright spectacular. Until he got choked out, we never saw him again, but that's something else. But I'm sorry, go ahead, Sky.
But that was when Roman Reigns was God mode and was having match of the year candidates with everybody.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. I mean, and that's not to take anything from Claudio, but I like Cesaro a lot more than I like Claudio. But that's a different story, and that's a different thing for another time. Anyway, let's get into a little bit of this match. Fatu starts wrecking everybody. You mentioned the Swanton. They came in right as they were doing everybody gets a finish in. So I knew, okay, we're heading towards the end of this. Swanton, BFT, South of Heaven, Claymore, 2 count. Claymore to LA Knight, but the Priest, Damian Priest pulls the referee. I had this moment, and I did it in the chat. The Morgan and Morgan mat. There should have been a blueprint for that. And shout out to whatever you're doing and whatever place. If you want to talk about lost potential for Matt Morgan, because we could have had Matt Morgan on a Morgan and Morgan mat.
Morgan and Morgan.
Yes, we could have Matt Morgan on Morgan and Morgan, Matt Morgan, Matt Morgan, Matt. Anyway, LA Knight did a great second rope pop up to the top rope elbow drop, and then this keeps going, and then finally we get this kind of subdivide that you knew was going to happen at some point. Because Drew had the match won, but Priest, pulls the ref and Drew gets all mad. So then they start brawling. And they start brawling to the outside, and they get over to the, hey, I need to put somebody through something spot of the arena. And I'm not saying it's in the same place every time that they do something like this, but it sure looks very similar every time they do something like this.
Are you accusing something with WWE?
I am just observing that it appears as though there is some continuity as far as look at these random stack put up high like this where it can be very obviously and easily lit to articulate with tables below that are meant to function as what? I'm not sure, but there's 2 of them in place at a very conveniently crash patty spot. And unfortunately, Drew McIntyre didn't hit the table when that South of Heaven happened. from what I heard, his head didn't, at least. Well, I heard from you, and I assume you have sources.
Maybe.
But it's possible. Well, who knows? Drew might not, because he might be concussed. So take care of yourself, Drew, because we love you. And you want to talk about some of the best wrestlers right now in WWE. Drew, even though he's cooled down a little bit, everything he touches is amazing.
But that's kind of the point, is that when you look at Drew McIntyre and you look at Damian Priest, the comparison between the two, yes, Damian Priest is a good wrestler. Yes, he's a decent promo. Yes, he is a decent in-ring person. But everything that he does, Drew McIntyre does it better.
Yeah. And I can't dispute that. You know, what's funny to me, Skylar, is that I've been so broken by being a wrestling fan for so long that the second you said you look at Damian Priest and you look at Drew McIntyre and you think that these things are equal, but you look at these and you know that it's not true.
Listen, I believe that Scott Steiner can beat a gorilla on his own. He doesn't need to name on other men.
But that silverback in the Steiner recliner, I'll tell you what.
He actually put something out, said, it don't need to be 100 men versus one gorilla. It needs to be one super freak versus 100 gorillas.
That's right. I would put in his prime, Scott Steiner against the silverback gorilla, he has a shot. He's got a shot at it. You know, people don't give Scott nearly enough credit for just how insanely athletic he was in the early 90s going into the 2000s. He was on another level. I mean, I'm talking before he got that little extra bicep as a result of all the steroids. But, like, in his athletic prime, in the WCW and then the early WWE days when he showed up, you know, when they were there in 93, he was another level of athletic beast. You know,
and that's the thing, is that, like, if you're looking at peak performance, Scott Steiner was peak performance.
That's right. And now,
anyways, to get back to this conversation, Damian Priest, I hope it doesn't look like the feud with Drew McIntyre is ending anytime soon. I imagine they're going to have like a blow-off match soon.
Oh, I hope so.
But like Damian Priest needs to pull something out of his ass after this feud ends, because right now he is a middle of the card, sometimes can main event, but middle of the card dude, and that's kind of not good, all things considered.
Yeah, in the same way, I didn't write it down, but I had this feeling like, boy, Damian's hit his ceiling, hasn't he? And I feel bad saying that, because I like Damian Priest. I really do. I enjoy his work. It's just, I think he just needs to go away for a little while. I think he needs to just take some time off, go learn a new hold, and then come back with something added to it, because he needs a new gimmick, something that makes it different for him. But what that gimmick is, I don't know. Yeah, I mean, the only thing he took when he left the Judgment Day was the All Rise part of the theme song, and it really hasn't changed much after that, which is kind of a shame. But you know, he'll figure it out. I believe that they'll figure it out. Anyway, Solo saves Fatu from the announce table elbow from LA Knight, and LA Knight's like, hey, what's going on with that? And then somebody comes in and jacks up LA Knight, and I couldn't figure out who it was at first, and then he pulls the hood, and Skylar, when I say I nearly fell out of my chair, I popped so hard to see this guy. Particularly those of you who have been longtime fans of the channel will remember ACPW versus NWL, the fantasy booking that Skylar and I did. And Jacob Fatu was a pretty big part, as was Drew McIntyre, was a pretty big part of your show, Skylar, in those days. All of which you can find on the channel, by the way. Well, do you remember who I centered most of my show around?
You centered it around Jim Cornette talking about Jeff Cobb.
That's right. And here comes Jeff Cobb, and I kind of forgot how short he was. And it makes me wonder just how crazily Lucha Underground shot him when he was Matanza to make him look so freaking huge. Because they made Matanza look huge, but he was the smallest of the three of these guys. And that's not to say he isn't jacked, but you couldn't tell that from the vest and the hoodie he was wearing. But Jeff Cobb shows up, and Fatu's like, what the fuck are you doing here? And Solo goes, go win. I just helped you, go win. And then he hits his moonsault, and LA Knight, who I knew was good. I knew when this match was booked, he's the only one that's going to possibly take this pin, and it made me sad. But I don't care, because Jeff Cobb is in WWE.
Also, this is a loss that kind of makes sense. It keeps LA Knight out of the U.S. title picture, which it's good for him because he can go do other things. But what this does now is it really creates intrigue in the bloodline that hasn't been there for a while, because in the TV shows that have basically led up, Jacob Fatu is basically the leader of the bloodline right now. He's the one that's in charge. So Solo Sikoa bringing in more reinforcements. And the other thing, too, is Jeff Cobb fits the look of the bloodline perfectly.
Yeah, he does.
He's from Hawaii. He represents Guam, so he's a Pacific Islander, just like the rest of these Samoans and Tongans. He fits that vibe perfectly. Solo Sikoa is basically got another Jacob Fatu, and that matchup of Jeff Cobb and Jacob Fatu, I never knew I wanted that match, but now I kind of want it.
Well, and apparently, I was looking this up a little bit. Jacob Fatu and Jeff Cobb had a hell of a rivalry on the Indies a couple of years ago before either of them were signed. So there is a history between those two, which is why Jacob looked so wary when Jeff Cobb was there. And I love that Jacob Fatu was wary of somebody, because think about how huge that gets Jeff Cobb over, considering how much of a beast Jacob Fatu is. This is like both of our shows just Dragon Ball Z fused into this angle. and I am all for it. I am 100% here for it. And so...
again, it really does shoot life into the bloodline, which had kind of become a B or even C level stable at this point.
Yeah.
Because they didn't really have much behind them other than Jacob Fatu, because Solo means less now than he did before.
Solo losing all the time did not help that at all.
But Jeff Cobb immediately gives at least a new intrigue into this. I don't think the bloodline will ever be what it once was, because how can it be if you don't have Roman Reigns or people near the level of Roman Reigns?
Yeah, well, we'll see what happens with that. I don't know.
But
I think
what this does now is it extends and makes something interesting in the bloodline, which has not been there for a while.
Yeah, and also this breathes some life into Solo going, like, they've been teasing this Solo versus Jacob Fatu feud for a little while, but this gives Solo something of a power play. Like, I'm still able to bring guys in. What are you doing? You know, and I do like that for Solo, because I really think Solo kind of got shafted in this whole deal. You know, because people were booing the shit out of him before they just had Roman Reigns walk over him when he came back. It was just... And I'm not saying that Roman shouldn't have won that feud. It's just they didn't have a backup plan for what Solo was going to do after the fact. And that's the... You know, it's a shame. But also, Jacob Fatu being Jacob Fatu doesn't help Solo either. So, it's...
And that's kind of the thing, is that Solo needed to have an edge again and need to have something in his back pocket, and this is exactly what he needs.
Yeah, and you know...
Again, it was a good match to start the show.
It was, you know, from what I saw of it, which was basically, the heart of the whole deal, the heart of the cards there. But I will say, you were mentioning... Sorry, I couldn't help it. We had all those Yu-Gi-Oh! References earlier. But anyway, you mentioned LA Knight staying out of the United States Championship picture. I had this thought the other day after LA Knight got pinned. I said, you know, it's usually someone who's taken a bunch of losses lately that turns around and wins Money in the Bank. And I think LA Knight could be a huge favorite to win that matchup. Especially if Seth Rollins is going to win the World Heavyweight Championship back, and he's going to need a babyface to fight heading into WrestleMania season to make that title prestigious and get LA Knight to where they still view him, because he's still getting cheered like crazy. Keep an eye on LA Knight in the next couple of months. That's all I'm going to say.
Well, they happen to be doing Money in the Bank in Inglewood, California, which is basically LA.
Well, look at that. Well, but speaking of people who love Hollywood and LA, would you like to hear what Joshageddon had to say about this matchup?
Sure.
All right. Uh, sorry, he got me here. Now that Sean has finished fangirling about Jeff Cobb, allow me.
Like he knew.
He's so new. Allow me to also fangirl over Jeff Cobb. Oh my God, Jeff Cobb makes me squeal harder than Sagat. Well, we're going to talk about Sagat a little bit later, but that's a different story. And the link is in the description for those of you who know what all that's all about. But before that, we had a pretty damn good four-way to kick this event off. A quick aside, though, news outlets got the match order on this show wrong, and I'm beginning to suspect that Triple H leaks fake shit just to make them report things incorrectly and look stupid, just like I do when I can't read. If that is the case, good. Fuck wrestling news media, except us. I don't know if I really call us wrestling news media. We're just a bunch of doofuses just talking about our fandom. But as for this match, I had fun. My favorite spot was the finisher fest that ended with Drew claymoring Priest on top of LA Knight by accident for the almost pin, which was a subtle callback to Backlash 2007 when the exact spot was the finish to a four-way between John Cena, Orton Michaels, and Adam Cope Edgeland.
Gross.
Jacob, yeah, he is gross. I agree. Jacob Fatu is spectacular, and he is so over that it hurts. And him throwing a fit will never not get a pop from the crowd and from me. I am concerned about Drew, though, after the South of Heaven threw the tables and equipment, as apparently he hit his head on the ground pretty hard and may be injured. Hope Drew's okay.
According to Triple H on the press conference afterwards, he said he was banged up, but otherwise he didn't have a concussion, which we'll see.
Yeah, we'll see. We'll see. There's no blue tent for Russell Wilson to duck in and out of in very recordly short fashion. And props to those of you who got that reference. But yeah, the introduction of Jeff Cobb was 100% a mark-out-worthy moment, and Fatu retaining was the correct outcome. And the prospect of a possible Jacob Fatu versus Jeff Cobb in the future makes me wet. Great way to start the show. Now, I will say this on a personal aside. I'm guessing because the crowd was kind of like, who's that? When it came to Jeff Cobb, save for a few people. The people who marked out the most were probably us for Jeff Cobb. But that's okay. Give it some time. When you see what this guy can do, they will easily be persuaded. He's going to be able to do what Bronson Reed keeps wishing he can do.
Well, and not that Bronson Reed isn't a bad dude, it's just he keeps getting hurt.
Yeah, well, yeah, it's kind of what I mean. It's, but in any case, then we move on to a match that I didn't think was going to be bad, but I also didn't think I was going to enjoy as much as I did. It's the women's intercontinental title.
Okay, Macho Man.
Becky Lynch versus Flappy Bird, Lyra Valkyria. And I will say the wings weren't as ridiculous as they were at WrestleMania. And the fact that that is an English sentence talked about in professional wrestling is a different story altogether.
Well, here's the thing. WrestleMania is where the ridiculous outfits are at their best. I mean, look at what Seth Rollins wore.
That's true. And Becky was like normal again, which was a little surprising to me, but I'm not upset about it.
Okay, but hold on. Let's go back to Lyra for a second. Whoever decided to put glitter in her hair needs to be fired because it looked like throw up.
Yeah, and it got worse as the match went on. It
looked like Vince McMahon took a shit on her head.
Oh, no. Where he was eating mostly dairy that day. And oh, God. And oh, God damn. And I thought that we were getting...
Am I not wrong?
No, I'm not...
Go back and... Actually, I don't want you to go back and look. But if you do go back and watch this match, look at the hair and look at the glitter. It's awful.
I'm not saying you're wrong, but I'm saying, man, me talking about The Rock being full brown and you talking about Vince shitting on Lyra's head. Boy, this is going to be a lawyer-heavy podcast episode, I'll tell you what. But in any case... It's good to have you back, Scott. It's never a dull moment with us. What was your overall opinion of this match?
My overall opinion of this match was good mid-card title match, but I am worried.
Go on.
To me, when I was looking at like the recent like stuff that's been going on, so you know how we have John Cena's heel turn, which was absolutely legendary in the moment.
In the moment, yes.
And we've had several other like heel turns that have happened recently. I can't remember any of them because John Cena's one was so big it kind of basically
overshadowed everybody's. Yeah.
And that's how I feel with Becky Lynch's heel turn. We know Becky Lynch can be a heel based off of past work, but to me, it's nothing special because we've seen Becky be a heel and it's not special. Also, it doesn't help, and Joshua pointed this out last time that Becky was here, and I can't unsee it. Her arms are flabby. She's wearing a full bodysuit because her belly's probably not looking that great. She doesn't have the tone or the muscle. She's female Adam Cole.
Well, I don't know if I'd go that far. I mean, I'm pretty sure Becky Lynch has got more muscle mass than Adam Cole, so I'm not here to speak on that. But okay, I'm not disagreeing with the physique part of it. I mean, Becky's a mom now, and honestly, with the amount of pandering that she did, which I'm not knocking her for because she was doing good storytelling work throughout, she doesn't necessarily have to have the physique because she's got other attributes to make up for it. At least in my opinion. But the thing that gets me, though, is that while I really enjoyed this match, and particularly the finish I loved, it went on a little long, and let's be honest, Sky, have you not seen this same match from Becky Lynch at least 7 or 8 times?
They had a Becky Lynch match.
And that's my problem. It's that Becky came back and did nothing different. You know, I don't mind the feud, and I don't mind the story behind the feud, because that's fine. And I enjoyed a lot of this. Like that reverse, they did a collar double tie-up. They did the reverse pendulum crab pelvic thrust. Woo! Woo! Stop on your right foot, don't forget it. And then they did a surfboard that brought it around town. And then okay, folks, if you want to go back and see something about this match that doesn't involve Lyra's throw-a-pair, there is an angle that was shot on the hard cam of this match where everybody won because there was let's just say there was some clams on the half shell present. And
it's not like the second time this year that some wardrobe malfunction has happened during a Lyra.
Moment. You couldn't full on see clams, right? You couldn't see the clams, but it was during this surfboard or during the thing that Eddie Guerrero used to do that I don't remember the name of. Where he did
something Mexican.
Yeah, it was basically during the surfboard when both their legs are up and both their knees are up and the hard cam shot, and it was just right down the bowling alley. You could see all 10 pins. It's one of the,
Really?
Yes, it was. Now,
really?
Now, you couldn't see anything because, obviously they're wearing costumes, so it wasn't like, camels in the desert. And we are getting so removed from YouTube after this show. There is no way we're surviving this one. Folks, enjoy this while it lasts. Oh, good gravy. But anyway, we all won with the clam shot. Becky's elbow started bleeding. Then Becky walks Lyra over to her fiance. What did you think of this as Becky was taunting this Lyra's fiance and she got a little fire to come back in?
I'm not going to lie, Lyra's fiance looks like exactly what I expect a non-wrestler husband to look like to a woman wrestler.
He looks like a dude who would fuck a bird person. It's just like, no, this just fits the type. He's part bird himself.
No, it was his idea.
Yeah,
That's what gets him off.
I bet it's like, hey, you leave the wings on. Lay an egg for me, Lyra.
Girl.
Oh, God.
Go.
Ha! I bet their landlord hates
orgasm
them.
sounds.
Oh, god damn. Well, to my joke was Lyra's fiance looks like he spent 75% of the time at gas stations and record stores complaining about mainstream music. And
then he spends his days working out of a coffee shop with his 3B macchiato.
that's right, where he opens up his laptop acting like he's writing a novel, but he's really just like playing solitaire. And
not even Fortnite, just solitaire.
solitaire or like Minecraft, but like still
Minesweeper.
Yes,
he plays Minesweeper.
He's got these dual tabs, solitaire and Minesweeper. He's got Minesweeper in one corner and solitaire in the other, and he's just wrecking them. Anyway, we get a nice running fisherman.
We're insulting everybody today. I
know we're ruthless. We are ruthless and thankfully not toothless. At least I still have all of mine. Although you're the hockey guy, you still have all your teeth.
For now.
Anyway, we get a running fisherman plex by Lyra, which was great. The crowd was into this, but kind of split. Michael Cole gives us the classic 6-word phrase that we all know and love. What do I have to do?
A little early for that, not gonna
I know
lie.
it was, because this match went on a good 7 or 8 minutes afterwards. And, we get a superplex. Becky tried to use the rope, but she got caught doing it. They do the leg drop to the back of the neck. Lyra did to Becky, which at first I thought didn't connect, but then they showed the replay, and Lyra really landed that leg on Becky's neck. That was, then they do a trade of actual arm bars. We get to disarm her. The manhandle slam still didn't do it.
Shut up.
The steel chair, don't worry, there will be 2 more before the match is over.
None of them look good.
No, they don't. It just doesn't work for Becky. It never did. It never looked good for Becky. Of all the moves that she does.
One time, and that was when she did it as a surprise to Bianca Belair, and that was it.
Yeah, which they already had the name Manhandle Slam for, but that's a different story. Then Becky gets a steel chair, but it's a diversion to undo the turnbuckle pad. I don't know whether this is true or not, but there was one point where it sounded like some of the cheering was not coming from the crowd. And
the people were on their hands and feet.
Well,
screaming and yelling in excitement.
Well, but they didn't show it on camera.
Are you noticing the sarcasm in my voice?
I could hear it, but the crowd, the quote-unquote crowd noise sounded excited, but the visual didn't match. And it could be just that
everybody was sitting down. There was no standing up. There was no extra energy. This felt like a TV. This felt like a really long TV show main event.
Well, and my problem is this: are they pumping crowd noise in again? Be honest with me, Hunter, because you don't need to do that unless things have really cooled off in a way that are worse than we thought.
No, it has cooled off. Look, I think WWE, they couldn't sustain the hot period. It was going to come down at some point. But man, their women's wrestling is just not doing it right now.
Well, and
outside of Rhea Ripley and Io Sky, like none of the women get people excited.
Yeah, and it's I feel like there was some part of this that the crowd was getting into, but then it really started going long. I think that it overstayed its welcome by like 3 or 4 minutes. We get the second manhandle slam. And
hate it.
And that didn't do it. And I said this is getting finisher heavy. Then I did like this spot though when Jessica Carr goes out to like get the turnbuckle pad in an attempt to reattach it, even though Lyra had the pin on Becky, but she was too delayed, so then she ran over to get the cover and it just wasn't enough. And it's like that's nobody's fault. But I liked that was creative. That was a creative little moment there.
I mean, it was a good spot. It's just that, again, if this match was 5 minutes shorter, I could appreciate it more.
Right. And, well, especially because the way this match really did end. She took 3 manhandle slams. And
God damn it.
And Becky is, and gets really upset. And then they start doing a series of roll-up counters. And Lyra gets one on Becky, and it works. Catches her really quick, but just as quickly, Becky gets up and just starts putting the boots to Lyra. And I like the fact that it was one swift motion of finish was fast. Becky said, okay, fine, fuck you, and just started just beating mercilessly down Lyra Valkyria, immediately getting some heat back. I like the finish of this, that Lyra gets to keep the title. It's a quick pin, so it's not like there was a definitive winner, but Becky immediately, just out of rage, and now that she can just let loose, nearly tackled Jason Jordan, and he's like, nah, get back there. And that I liked. The finish of this I really liked. It could have taken, like you said, Sky, 5 minutes off of this, 2 less manhandle slams, and this would have been way better.
And not only that, too, the other part that I kind of had an issue with when I was looking at this match, and I'm going back and thinking about it. This match, to me, suffered from a lot of issues that Becky Lynch's matches have suffered from recently, in that she is still more over than the person she's wrestling, and the people are not caring about her.
Well, yeah,
I'm worried about Lyra Valkyria. I really am, because they're giving her a lot of time and energy and push. Like, they had her potentially team with Bayley and supposedly doing great things, and it's not really hitting.
They're trying with Lyra, but I think, unfortunately, even though they're doing the thing with the entrance, I think this gimmick is just a little too silly. I think it's hurting Lyra more than it's helping her, to tell you the truth. And I think that there's going to be something that is a little more, I'm not a bird person, that's going to help Lyra push her to the next level. But I don't think it's going to happen until they're left with no other choice. So I think that the current run of Lyra is rather jeopardized. However, I think that this feud with Becky will do her some good, because I think we might be able to get more natural Lyra. Because it's weird having Lyra be the more showboaty of the two, as far as like the outlandishness of the gimmick and the look. And I think there's more to be done with Lyra, but I see what you're saying, because they are giving her a lot, and it's kind of working, but not really working.
It's kind of the same issue that a lot of the women right now have, is that none of them really stand out amongst each other. Like, as I said, the only women that kind of stand out and are really, really making an impact right now are Rhea Ripley, Io Sky, somewhat Jade Cargill and Bianca Belair, but like not really. They're in a tough way with their women's division. They need more women to really hit higher levels. And I don't know when and who is going to be that next one. Maybe it's Roxanne Perez or somebody else.
Well, Roxanne Perez is now a part of the show.
More.
But yeah, it's hard to say. I feel like Roxanne Perez has some of the most potential.
I wouldn't be surprised, by the way, if Roxanne wins Money in the Bank for the women.
Well, see, the thing I worry about with Roxanne Perez is that because she's so good, they're going to push her too fast. And then she's going to end up in the same problem. And that worries me a little.
Tiffany Stratton?
Yeah, kind of. I mean, I like Tiffany Stratton, but, I feel like Tiffany also suffered a lot of damage because she had to put up and suffer through Charlotte Flair, which did not do her any favors. It didn't help.
I mean, it kind of turned her into a babyface despite the fact that she's a bitchy.
Well, thinking about what Tiffany had to go through. She won the title from Nia. She had to work with Nia and then Charlotte. It's not the greatest entourage of people you have to associate with as far as your championship run is concerned. It's not like she's having matches against a Becky Lynch even, or a, it's not helping because they don't have the amount of women necessary to really sustain 2 fruitful, active women's divisions, which is what they're trying to do.
And that's made even worse with 2 mid-card titles on top of that.
Yeah, and it's like they're spreading themselves too thin, baby. But speaking of thin, would you like to hear what Joshageddon has to say? Lyra Valkyria versus Becky Lynch, Women IC title. This match honestly surprised me, mostly because the crowd was actually into it. Good job, St. Louis. You were a solid crowd all night, if it really was you. I thought this match was tremendous, and the best match Lyra has had in WWE or NXT thus far. Lyra absolutely needed a performance like this and a feud like this. I love Lyra, but she just hasn't been resonating with the crowd since she was called up. But this feud with Becky is changing that quickly. I hope so. Both in-ring and on the mic, Lyra is gaining confidence, and it pleases me to see it. Becky was the in-ring general in this match, which makes sense considering she helped train Lyra. My absolute favorite part of this match was a very subtle piece of storytelling towards the middle, when Lyra nearly decapitated Becky with a John Cena leg drop. She briefly wanted to follow that up with a moonsault, but changed her mind and decided to go for the pin instead. That hesitation serves two purposes. One, showing Lyra's inexperience in a believable way. And two, WWE is where winning is more important than I do cool flip now derp. Fuck you, AEW. I will agree with Sean that the match did proceed to wear out its welcome. And God, he is just reading my fucking mind today. And Lyra didn't need to kick out of Becky's finish twice, for fuck's sake, dude. But those are small gripes. This served its purpose and is just what Lyra needed. I hope so. This is a more positive outlook than I have. I look forward to what is next for this program between these two. That I agree with. And that is where we are heading into match number 3. It's the Men's Intercontinental Championship.
By the way, before we get to this Intercontinental Championship,
yes, go
there
ahead.
was a really cool thing that they did in the middle between these two matches, and they showed John Cena and Randy Orton's first match in OVW, and then the last one-on-one match that they had in 2017 on SmackDown. And looking through those matches, one, John and Randy look like babies in OVW.
I know. Oh, my God.
And also OVW getting a shout-out in 2025. Talk about times are changing.
Well, CM Punk's going to be in Louisville on SmackDown. You think there's a chance we see old Jimmy C heading up there?
No.
Could you imagine Punk's like, all right, I lost Paul Heyman, but I got a better guy. And how Punk's going to, dude, I would lose my mind. The internet would lose its mind,
John, but keep the optimism.
I am smoking the copium as,
and not the Edge copium.
No, that stuff's bad.
Not the Adam Copeland.
No, that stuff not even once with that stuff. But
speaking of a man who left AEW,
yes, and has gone on to do things. It is Dominic Mysterio versus Penta for the Intercontinental title. What did you think of this match?
Well, I mean, this was your lucha match of the evening.
Sure was, kinda.
But unfortunately, and this is something I also talked with Joshua about, this was your Judgment Day match of the evening. And at this point in the show, given what we've seen already, the interferences were becoming a lot.
And they would not end at this match.
No, but this is one of the bigger offenders of interference in the middle of a match, simply because every Judgment Day match involves interference. At this point, the referee should not even attempt to try and reason them with these guys. Just throw them out the second they see them.
Yeah, but that didn't even work. It didn't even make sense. It's like, yeah, there was a level of I'm not sure whether this whole finish was really thought through. This was probably my least favorite thing on the night. And that's not a knock on either of these two guys, but this weird fusion of American/lucha style was different. I'm not saying bad, different. And the fans are, really behind Dominic. Yeah, he's supposed to be a heel. That does not matter to the crowd anymore. I think they are not going to have a choice but to turn Dom pretty soon. And honestly, they're teasing it a lot. I thought they were going to pull the trigger on that tonight. That was the whole reason I thought they were going to have this match. Instead, they're keeping a different feud going, which I don't know if I'm really into. But in any case,
they're keeping an interesting gimmick up. It's just This really does feel like, okay, we're waiting until Penta gets his brother to tag with him.
Maybe. I feel like this is going... They're trying to do something with Penta, but I just don't know quite what the direction is, because they've got two different feuds going on here, and neither involved the two facing each other in the matchup. This, to me, was more a TV match than any other match on the show. And
I could see it.
And truthfully, the thing about the Judgment Day is, like, it's not even just that they interfere all the time, but both parties lost a lot of steam when Rhea Ripley and Damian Priest went off to do their own thing. And they've tried to salvage it with Dom and Liv and have had some success, but you can't tell me that people care about this faction the way that they used to.
They don't. And the thing is that if it feels like we're at a point now with the Judgment Day where they can keep doing whatever they want to do. And yes, they're going to be fun and successful as long as Dom and Liv are part of it. But the second those two leave, the others are dead in the water.
Yeah, I mean, Raquel Rodriguez, you want to talk about riding coattails. She's formed an actual chariot behind Liv's coattails. but
Kevin Nash.
That's right. Well, yeah, but Kevin Nash still could at least understood the business. Kevin Nash had better matches than Raquel has. Not all of them.
Yes, but Kevin Nash also rode the coattail to Shawn Michaels.
At the beginning, sure. I will give you that. But Kevin got better.
That's kind of what it feels like. It feels like Raquel Rodriguez, no matter what she does, is early Kevin Nash riding Shawn Michaels' coattails.
Yeah.
Which, by the way, I'm not in this context saying that Liv Morgan is Shawn Michaels. I am not saying that right now.
No.
Liv Morgan does not have a lazy eye.
I think the better simile, I think, is that Raquel Rodriguez is like Dan Spivey.
Oh, that's not fair.
To who? Dan Spivey?
No, to Raquel.
No, well, but come on. I mean,
I get where you're coming from. It's an apt comparison. I just feel bad.
I do too. I'm not saying she's a bad person. I'm sure she is a lovely woman who, if she would like to date me, I wouldn't mind. But at the same time,
that medical condition that took her out for a year really hurt her career.
Yeah, it did. And I feel bad for saying that, but it also hurt her work because she's not very good anymore. You know, not that she was spectacular before, but she was better than what she is now. And
agreed.
And
now, going back to this match that we have completely ignored.
Yes, well, yeah, we get Dominic, who is a Calprint Cell, is goes up against Blue Man Group Penta, as Penta slammed very awkwardly into the steel steps. This is where Wade Barrett made me laugh, because Michael Cole makes a bad pun, almost one that would be my level. And he goes, Dominic is dominating. Dominating. And Wade Barrett goes, oh, look at you, Cole. Just the sarcasm layered into Wade Barrett was so funny. Wade was on fire tonight. He did a great job. But then we kind of get into just spots. You know, we get a backward sling blade. Feel free to interrupt me at any time as I go down the list of things I wrote down.
No, keep going.
Penta did a dive to the outside that was more shoot than normal. Dom barely caught him. But I prefer ones that look effective like that than ones that don't ever hit ever like Charlotte's. The Oblivion still sucks with Dom, but it was funny that he did it. And it was, then we get an apron destroyer, and that's kind of when I started rolling my eyes. I'm like, oh, geez. And then Carlito limps out. And at this point, Skylar, explain this to me, my friend. Dominic comes out with the three members of the Judgment Day at the beginning of the matchup, with all three of them there, and they wish him well, and then they go to the back so that Dom can have this matchup by himself. But then they all come up there in the ring, knowing that they're not supposed to be there, and then ultimately the referee tells them to leave. But if the referee tells them to leave, they weren't supposed to be up there anyway. Why would they listen to the referee at that point? And if that's what, and why didn't they just stay from the beginning and cause a problem?
So you understand my complaint about the Judgment Day then?
I'm saying that in this case, their interference makes no sense because or at least the way that they structured how the referee responded to their interference makes no sense. And they, I think 3/4 of it was just so the referee could roll his hands and the whole crowd can go, "You're out of here!" And they all went, "Oh no! How could this have possibly happened?" And then we get a tope corn Cheetos from the top, and then
my oven agrees with you about your complaints. It signals its approval at your complaints.
Yes, I like being verified. That's the truth. But speaking of, then we get the finish of this, and I mean, okay, I get it. Penta's gonna go for his thingy, and Grande Americano headbutts him with that steel-plated mask, and then Dominic capitalizes for the pin because the referee was distracted by the Judgment Day and then Grande Americano. So they're keeping Gable and Penta going, and fine, I don't mind that. And they're still teasing Dominic and Brawler because you could see that Brawler was not too happy. He kept looking at Dominic throughout this whole exit sequence, so they're clearly teasing that. I thought they were going to pull the trigger on that tonight. I thought that Finn Balor was going to cost Dominic Mysterio tonight. But they've got time for that, and it's clear they're going to wait on it.
The thing is that Dominic just got this title. They're probably going to keep it on him at least until SummerSlam.
Yeah, that's my guess, is that they're going to have this thing with Balor, and then we're going to find out who's going to be on whose side, and we're going to get another split from this Judgment Day, and, I don't know how much I'm loving that, but we'll see how it all happens.
I mean, what it could lead to finally is, like, the final breakup of the Judgment Day. Maybe JD goes with Finn, Carlito goes with Dom, and he takes the girls with him. Maybe we just finally move on from this.
Yeah. It's I don't mind any of this, right? I'm not saying this from a place of complaint like I don't like this. It's just fine. It's just fine. It was a fine match with a fine finish, and I see what they're doing. I'm not thrilled by it, but it's not like the matches are going to be dog shit. They're not. They're going to be fine. But it feels kind of bad considering that this stable, just like the Bloodline 2 years ago, was in a more prominent position, and now it's kind of fallen to be mid-card fodder. Well, and, factions come and go, but I feel like they've really tried to drag out the Judgment Day to where it's not even what it represents anymore. It's like none of the original people involved are involved anymore. Edge is gone, Damien's gone, Rhea's gone, and Finn is the only one left, and he's about to leave. And he's not even an original guy because they replaced Edge with him. And so it's just the identity of what this faction is just not what it was, and it's. I think that you're right. We're gonna see a definitive end to it, kind of in the way that we saw a definitive end to Roman Reigns' bloodline, and I think it's gonna be healthy for all involved. But this was fine. I don't have any real major complaints about it. It was a fine enough match. I enjoyed it for what it was, and that's about it. Do you have anything else to add before I get to Joshageddon?
Again, I am happy that Dominic is progressing. He really is showing the promise that he has over the past few years, going from a very, very green babyface when him and his dad became the first ever father-son tag team, to now being a respectable chicken shit heel. That's turning into a babyface.
Organically, too. Like, the fans are genuinely liking Dominic now. It doesn't feel so forced. He's kind of earned his stripes a little bit more than he used to, or his cow patterns in this case. But let's talk about Joshageddon here. For the women's Intercontinental title to the men's, I know we say this every show now, but hot damn has Dom improved like crazy. That suicide dive DDT on Penta was so, slick, Holy shit, I wasn't expecting Dom to pull out something good like that. Some good shit like that. I cannot read today. This was the weakest match of the night to me, but it was still pretty good. Ignore Skylar's prior whining about Judgment Day interference. Boy, he is fucking on it. He is so on it.
We made our thoughts very well known before the show started.
You're right.
So Joshua knows what we're feeling about this match.
You're right. I'm trying to give him some level of Nostradamus level credit here, but in any case, Dom and Penta have some chemistry, and Penta still looks and comes off wicked cool. I will say though, the lights going dark at the start of someone's entrance is being used too much. Fatu has it, Penta has it, Damien has it, the returned Aleister Black has it. It's repetitive. And I will forgive the Judgment Day interference here for one reason, and that is that Finn Balor took too long and they ended up getting caught. Also, we have some smart refs enforcing rules tonight, which is always good to see. Which is a good point.
Took away the steel chair and tried to put the turnbuckle back on in her match. Like, the referees were doing good tonight.
Yeah, I mean, I like rules. Yes, there was times when rules were not given a fuck about, and that was a constant level of issue that we had all the time. I bet Finn was doing that intentionally to try and screw over Dom as discreetly as possible. I want this Finn and Dom breakup to happen soon because honestly, we don't need the Judgment Day anymore. Also, I don't care about El Grande Americano like at all. But if the play is some kind of mask versus match at Worlds Collide WWE versus AAA show, oh, I forgot about that. Fine, but this match was fun and Dom with the strap is pretty cool.
You know that Penta and Phoenix are going to be two of the big stars as they try to do this big WWE AAA event thing.
Yeah, I totally forgot about that AAA event, which I may or may not watch. But yeah,
it depends on how good the matches are, to be honest.
Well, and they're trying to market that too, now that they've got their shiny new toy, and they're trying to show that they're taking Lucha seriously, which we will, the jury's still out on, but we'll see. We'll see how that all works out.
More so, they want to make money in Mexico, but you're not going to make money in Mexico unless you have a Lucha company or a Lucha product.
Right.
It leads to really gross things happening, like signing Alberto Del Rio.
Yeah.
I hope he just stays in AAA and it's just a thing where they have to do WWE contracts for all the AAA talent now. But if he shows up in WWE, that may be a I'm done moment with a lot of people.
It's going to be at the Rumble in Saudi Arabia. You watch.
Hell.
You watch.
No.
Yeah.
No.
Oh, yeah, he's going to be rolling up in that Rolls Royce that the fucking prince bought him. You watch. You watch. Although his criminal record might not allow him in the country, but we'll see.
Well, in Saudi Arabia, his crimes may give him a trophy.
Well, you might be right about that. Skylar, I've just been informed that Joshageddon sent you notes for the next match because he didn't do it with me because he has some sort of gripe about me liking the fourth match on a card so much. So, while you were fishing for an email that I'm sure you didn't suspect existed, let's move on to the next match. And boy, I gotta tell you, for the match that went on fourth, this one was my favorite of the night.
Oh God!
This was everything. You could not have booked this match better, in my opinion. I loved all of this. And Skylar, I was talking about this show being like a fusion dance of your show and my show of ACPW and NWL. Gunther and Pat McAfee is a combination we never thought to do, but dear God, this match was about as good as you could have it go for both guys. Let alone the Michael Cole promo before it.
Okay. Let's go back and just wrestling. Just wrestling. Gunther and Pat McAfee on paper is a joke.
Yes.
It's a complete and utter joke, and for some people, it would be a waste of Gunther's time. This match was fun. I don't care.
It was so fun. I enjoyed that shit out of it because they worked it like that. They worked it like the perception of the match on paper. And that is exactly what wrestling is. Yeah, this match is a joke. Yeah, it's a waste of Gunther's time, and that's the story. And God, did they do a great job. Pat McAfee, probably because most of that was real selling, but dear God, his selling is phenomenal. For a guy that has wrestled so little, dude knows how to take a fucking bump. Or dude knows how to sell
knows how to listen. He knows how to follow example, and that's the most important thing.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, Gunther led this whole thing, and it was great from start to finish. I enjoyed this so much. Pat looked good. I loved that spelling bastardization of motherfucker on the back of the shirt, on the back of the jersey. The crowd was kind of like, for Pat. And it's like, you're in Ram country. You're in former Ram country. You know, they don't really care for Indianapolis. So I feel like that kind of thing. And also, tell me what you feel about this, Sky. Does it feel like Pat, as a gimmick, has kind of gotten old?
Yes.
You know,
but it's fun, but yes.
You know, on commentary, I feel like when Pat's on commentary, I kind of know what I'm getting. You know, and I'm not saying that to knock the guy or knock the gimmick. It's just that I've seen it, I've heard it. And actually, what they did with Gunther choking them out is kind of exactly what that commentary table needed. It needed a little fire. And Pat coming in, he does the Jon Moxley strut. Did you notice that?
I did.
And although Pat looks better doing the Moxley strut than Moxley does, we get another Colonial tie-up here, which I loved. Pat goes to fire up, and he tripped on the rope, but he still got a chop in. And then it began. Gunther took the better part of 15 minutes to beat the ever-living piss out of Pat McAfee with good flurries in between and a great pacing to this match that really showed Gunther going, you know, showing you're not on my level, you are nowhere close to my level. Pat getting fired up, you know, the slaps, you know, Gunther's chops. Pat McAfee slapped Gunther really hard in the face at one point. And he immediately got a German for his trouble. You know,
this is one of those matches that was fun because again, as I said, on paper, it's not a good match, but Pat McAfee is trained enough to know how to do the things. And he's also good enough at listening to do the things that he needs to do.
And because Gunther's so good at doing things that work for what he's supposed to be doing as the persona he is, it allows a match like this to really go back and forth. And Pat got a lot of stuff in. Like, Pat ended up looking like $1 million after this as a result of the match that they had here. You know, as, you know, Gunther, and to be fair, I kind of feel like Gunther needed a good quality match like this too. Not to say that what he did with Jay was bad, but after there was that feeling of that Gunther was somewhat floundering at that point, he needed something like this as well.
I think it helps to remind the wrestling fans that Gunther is really exceptionally good as when compared to regular people. Not that Pat McAfee's a regular person, because Pat McAfee is pretty athletic more so than the regular human being.
Yeah, he's very athletic.
You can tell he's a non-wrestler going up against an actual wrestler,
right,
who's world caliber.
Right. And that's the way they angled this whole thing. You know, like the Pat's pat on the head, and that's, you know, thing. I like that when you know, Gunther goes to choke Pat, Pat gets to the rope, and immediately Gunther just breaks it and hits another German. And Pat goes down and flops down, and Gunther's just laughing his ass off. And he's taunting, and he's like not taking it seriously. And we were talking before, Skylar, about or at least Joshageddon mentioned Sagat. This is what I have done with him, and it's perfect for this scenario, for what Pat needs, for what Gunther needs. This was just, I encourage you all to just go back and watch this, because it goes to show just how you don't necessarily have to have a match be back and forth to get across exactly what you needed to. And
the other thing, too, with this match is that it really is, again, a demonstration of how good Gunther is, and that he can work with almost anybody and get a 3 or 4 star match out of it.
Yeah. And Pat, what was great, Pat gets a rally, he starts punting Gunther. He gets a punt to Gunther, gets a 1 count. And Gunther just stands up like, bro. And, they do a flurry of kicks, and after the kicks, he just gets power bombed. Then he goes for the crab, and this is where Cole gets to the apron, and the crowd started chanting for Michael Cole, and honestly, I was so happy about that. I was like, good for Cole. For being despised for so many years. But what are you doing is a good question.
Why are you getting on the ring apron with Gunther?
I don't even think he knew, but Gunther gets him in, and Pat kind of shoves him off, and Gunther shoves Cole off, and they kind of talk about that. Pat saves Cole, because, Gunther had him. Roll-up only gets a 2. I found this funny that Cole tried to cheat for Pat, and it still only got a 2, and that was great. And then Pat goes to hit something, and Gunther just clotheslines the absolute hell out of this man. JBL wishes that he had a clothesline like that. That is so intense. And finally the choke on Pat, where Pat tries to rally, but Gunther gets it again, and that's that. But man, this was spectacular. This was one of my favorite matches of the year so far. These two had a great set of storytelling, and Gunther is a fucking wizard.
It is, and did it have to be as long as it was? Not really, but for what it was, this was very fun.
Yeah, but it didn't feel like... Whereas Becky and Lyra, the match felt like it was going long, this pacing was good enough to where I never really got tired watching the match. And that is also... And I will say, once Cole left commentary, Wade carried his own. He carried the rest of that matchup. And did a great job on solo commentary. I have to give Wade Barrett a lot of credit tonight. Not that he hadn't won me over before, but he really was outstanding on this evening.
Because he had to be, because he was by himself, basically.
And he definitely stood up to the plate and took care of it. And so, Skylar, what did Joshageddon have to say about this match?
Well, you have to read a part, right?
Oh, yes. Hey, Sean, since you love fourth matches so much, please turn the floor over to Skylar. Well, I can't turn the floor over. I'm standing on concrete. But go ahead, Skylar. It's your turn.
In all caps, ha, Sean, you fool. You fell for my trap card. Unnecessary note splitting.
No, there's no way he made a Yu-Gi-Oh reference. There's no way.
Unnecessary note splitting can only be activated when Sean McCarty is reading the notes in a boring-ass way. This trap card forces Skylar Greenberg to take over the notes for a match in order to make this show interesting.
Yo, I fucking swear, he knew what we were going to say on this, well, he didn't know all of what we were going to say on this podcast, but he was so insanely prepared. I am freaking out now. This is scary a little.
Sean, he didn't actually write all that.
Oh, no, did you actually?
He only wrote, ha, Sean, you fool, you fell for my trap card. I did the unnecessary note splitting card thing.
Even still, him saying trap card. Anyway.
But did you like it for a second that I basically made up a fake Yu-Gi-Oh card?
Yes, you did. All of the incels on Dueling Book would be very proud.
Anywho, this was incredible. Literally every single second of this match was money. Gunther is the perfect professional wrestler, as a damn genius at everything he does. Pat is so good as an underdog babyface. And it's nice to see that Michael Cole works as a babyface cheerleader because Lord knows he did not work as a heel cheerleader. I nearly vomited as I typed that, remembering the horrors of 2010-2012 heel Cole. But yeah, this was such a well-put-together spectacle. And exactly what Gunther needed after losing to Jay at Mania. He is so good at being a cocky predator that toys with his food just a little too much. I swear there was one boot he gave Pat that I thought legit broke Pat's jaw. He beat the fuck out of Pat, and I loved it. Pat is an absolute champ for taking it, and the reactions they were able to elicit from the audience was superb. This was awesome. Now you can turn the floor back over to Sean. Toodle, Skyler. Wink.
Well, I'm glad he decided to do that on the fourth match, just to make sure. And he knew that I loved this match too. But you know what? For the sake of him using a Yu-Gi-Oh reference after all of the things he's already predicted tonight, this is it's almost like we've known each other since the first time that John Cena and Randy Orton fought each other, but not quite that long, but we were there for a good chunk of it. Long enough. As that should have been the tagline. Cena versus Orton. It's been long enough. As we get a mini documentary inside of this hype package for the undisputed heavyweight championship of the world. And the first word, and I loved the hype package. Randy Orton comes out, and the first thing that comes out of Michael Cole's mouth, and this bothered me, man, and it shouldn't, because this is what WWE has become. The first thing that comes out, do you remember what the first thing was that came out of Randy Orton, out of Michael Cole's mouth as Orton was doing his entrance?
No.
This match is sponsored by Wheatley fucking Vodka. Does everything have to be an ad?
Yes.
Like the other thing, they cut to the bunch of random dipshits who are wearing whatever the ad sponsor that they're doing, Here goes Ballsack Wireless, and there's like 15 fans carrying a phone with a pair of balls on it. Yeah! Here's our cool little fan checks and the people we paid for Ballsack Wireless. And
the thing that should have bothered you more was the fact that Cody Rhodes was the person that they were using to sell the ad of the vodka before.
Yeah, I know, because if Cody actually drank, he would have actually hit John Cena with the belt, but he didn't do that, so, But
it's just more so the fact that, again, this kind of reminds, Cody Rhodes has been gone for a month.
Well, as he should. I don't think he's coming back until SummerSlam at least. Tell you the truth. I think Cody's going to take some serious time off, which, honestly, he deserves. After a year-long run with that belt, he deserves some time off.
It also kind of helps to keep him fresh.
Yeah, which I think he needed, because John Cena said a lot of very true things about Cody, and I think Cody needs some time to kind of, rehype and rebuild the aura. But then we get to this, and this non-entrance for John Cena is absolutely peak. I really love it. And it occurred to me at this moment, wouldn't it be great? Because Michael Cole mentioned, this is big. He didn't say big match, John, but I think he said big fight feel with John Cena. And it occurred to me for one moment, can we just for one of these matches that Cena has left, get JBL and Michael Cole on commentary? Just for the fuck of it.
Well,
I want to hear big match John Maggle one last time.
Oh, God.
Just once.
Come on. You can YouTube that.
Just once. I want to hear it's John o'clock, motherfuckers. Just once. Get in there. But anyway, John Cena gets in, and we get another collar and elbow tie-up. But before we get into any further of this match, your overall impressions of the last time, allegedly, that we're going to see John Cena and Randy Orton.
Well, for basically the entirety of our even more than our adult lives, our children's lives too, because we were watching them when we were kids. It is a send-off to a part of our lifetimes we never realized we would have until here. It is nostalgia. This entire match is nostalgia, and They rode that, and it's also, I'm sure, a fun time for both John and Randy, considering how much they have wrestled each other over the years.
Yeah, oh, absolutely. And this, it's so funny that all it took was a change of dynamic, and the exact same match they've wrestled for 25 years all of a sudden feels fresh and new and exciting and engaging. But for God's sakes, this was the exact same match we have seen for 25 years. But I didn't care. It felt different. The aura was different. The fans reacting was different. You know, there was an added spark until the finish.
Well, again, it helps that this is different because this is not the same alignment. Because for all those years, John was the babyface, Randy was the heel. And it's reversed now, and it's different. We like Randy Orton more than John Cena because we want to see Randy Orton do cool stuff. And John Cena is the bad guy because he's an asshole.
Well, and I want to talk about a little something that what happened off the air, well, quote unquote off the air, after that, because that's an interesting little titty bit, but we're gonna get into that. Why is everybody falling for John Cena doing handshakes? He's gonna kick, he's gonna punch you. I mean, he's deliberately, outwardly, outspokenly shown that he is not that guy anymore, and yet Randy Orton was like, yeah, I'll shake your hand. Like, duh, don't be stupid. Like,
and of all people, it's Randy Orton,
Randy,
the man why
are you falling for John's sportsmanship?
Every dirty trick in the book, including that.
Yeah. but I did like the "We Are Awful People" sign that somebody pulled up, which was pretty funny. True. And then we get to... there are some things about John Cena and the matches he's had, these heel matches, that really make me laugh. And one of them was when John gets Orton into the corner and starts punching, and he hears the fans chanting 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Fuck you. He just is done. That got me. And then Orton turning around and then hitting 20 of them, you know, which was also really good. It's little stuff like, no, you're not getting the satisfaction of counting to 10. You're getting to 7. That's the kind of stuff I really like John playing with.
Well, again, his gimmick is that he hates the wrestling fans and he hates wrestling and he's out to ruin professional wrestling. So yeah,
well, and given the finish of this, it's going to be an interesting... We're going to talk about that. And then we get into the... all I could say is the let's start doing mostly finishers part of the match.
So the John Cena, Randy Orton part of the match.
Yes, yeah, correct. After some of the dynamic stuff, we get, you know, the same match. RKO setup. AA into the RKO, though, was smooth as fuck. That was really good. I enjoyed that. Then they go back and forth doing the yay boo, AA, 2 count. Stop me anytime, Skyler. Randy.
I really hate the fact that John Cena's talking is getting louder and louder.
I know. He just does not give a fuck.
John pointed out years ago, and I can't stop looking at John's mouth when he's talking and how loud and obvious he is.
He just does not care. You know, Randy goes for a punt and actually went all the way through to the leg and all that, which is more than we've seen in a while. But misses it, gets an AA 2 count. Cena tries the punt. It looked like garbage.
Has John Cena ever done the punt?
No. It makes sense that would not be in John Cena's wheelhouse. Well,
babyface John Cena.
Yeah. When has John Cena ever done or going to even attempt a punt? Never. Then there's a ref bump. The first of many. And this is something I really get. This is a criticism of Triple H I have. All of his main events have the same fucking formula. All of them. With a handful of different moments and heel turns or babyface turns in between, it's the same match. It's 2/3 wrestling, theater, pinfall. Every one of his matches is like that. This was
something that we talked about back even in his NXT days and starting to get to the end of NXT's golden era. He was doing the exact same thing.
Yeah, but it's gotten so much worse now. You know, I think that what happened with the Bloodline and how much people accepted that with the Bloodline really kind of hurt it. Because then, you know, we saw it with, you know, the Hunger Games 2 at SummerSlam when they did Bloodline Rules again, and it did not land the way that it was supposed to. And it's something that plagued Roman Reigns' run as world champion. You know, but it's now getting to the point where it's every main event. It doesn't matter who's in it, doesn't matter why they're in it, but every show has this exact same setup. And it's getting to the point, and especially with who got involved here, which also pisses me off, which we'll get to in a second. It's something that is starting to become a gripe. I don't want it to be a consistent gripe, but if it keeps happening, I will keep griping about it. Cena grabs the belt, instead gets an RKO, 2 count. This is with the ref out. They go to the announce table. It's there, you know, they get the shot into the steps. Orton AA Cena onto the table, but it didn't quite break. And then, Skylar, I don't know whether you saw this, but did you know that you saw Chad Gable's pee on camera on this night?
No.
Randy Orton goes to look for another table because he was quite unsatisfied with the way that announce table broke. So they said, fuck it, we're going to do it with a regular table. Which I don't think was supposed to be in this match, by the way. I think Orton added this because he didn't know where the table was. Because he goes to open up this side, and there's no table there, and he walks around the other side. But when that table was lifted, there's a Gatorade bottle with a half filled with yellow liquid in it, and it was right where Chad Gable emerged to attack Penta. And he was down there probably most of the night as fans were entering in attendance, because when else is Gable gonna get under there?
Well, when they do the match, like, refits or changing or cleaning the ring, there's a big ring crew that comes out and does that. So maybe he was snuck in that way.
Yeah, not from the stories I hear about being under the ring. Not the Hornswoggle stories I've heard, is you just sit your ass in there, and you sit in there the whole time. We're not playing around with that, you know, as, you know, we're taking no chances. So I would hope that you're right, but I kind of get the feeling we saw some Chad Gable urine, some Grande Americano urinastio on camera in the WWE. It's amazing what I'm able to spot. And seeing how piss bottles is a feature of The Rock, that was probably the biggest appearance of The Rock we saw all night.
Why? Because The Rock's work is like piss?
No, because The Rock leaves piss bottles on set everywhere. Oh,
God.
And so an homage to the final boss right there. Anyway, we get table number 2, and we get an AA on another table because the announce table didn't break right. I maintain that's the only reason they did that spot. Randy hits another RKO. We get another referee, 2 count. Second official gets hurt. Aldis gets in the ring and they try to look after the referee. And then Aldis gets another RKO.
And then Randy Orton just RKOs the entirety of WWE's agent group.
Which in St. Louis got a gigantic pop, which I understand. You know, and I get that. But I will say this. They are really teasing Orton and Aldis, so I wouldn't be surprised if they pull the trigger on that before too long.
That feels like a SummerSlam match.
Yeah, I feel like they're gonna leave Aldis no choice but to get involved with Randy. They've done it too many times now. You know, once, okay, twice, he said he was gonna do it. Now, third time means Aldis has to do something about it.
It felt like they were going to do it at Mania when Kevin Owens was taken out of the match.
Yeah, but I think that giving more reason for him to do it now, I think, is actually making it more valuable. But they've made the next thing I wrote down was they made this more spectacle than match. And okay. Joshageddon liked this because he called it. And the way they did it, they were teasing it, fine. But man, I did not like the way this ended. Orton's got Cena in the corner, and here's R-Truth. And R-Truth goes, no, Cena's my friend. And Orton goes, dude, why? Get the fuck out of here. It tosses him out, RKOs him, tosses him out. And that's just enough time for Cena to get the low blow and the title, you know, and end it, you know, with the 1, 2, 3. And you know why I have such a problem with this, Skylar?
Is it because of the Triple H booked finish?
Well,
and it's the same finish he does all the time?
Well, partially, but it's more the fact that this is the second John Cena title match in a row where they ended it with an appearance by a dumb bit. This isn't R-Truth coming out to actually defend John Cena. It's R-Truth being complainably
Redacted.
I'm sorry, but that's what it is, and that will be bleeped. But that is something we have complained about for a decade with R-Truth, and now all of a sudden, because he's approaching 50 and John Cena's a heel, that him doing it to ruin the main event is all of a sudden fine? No, I will not accept that hypocrisy. I will not accept that. R-Truth, this is a comedy wrestler doing a comedy bit in the middle of the last matchup between Randy Orton and John Cena that they're ever going to have. If this is what John meant about ruining wrestling by having crap gimmick finishes like this with comedy wrestlers, I am not going to have a fun 2025 in the main event. Because this was so unnecessary. And I know John Cena put R-Truth to the table, so they're at the post show, so they're setting up for Saturday Night Main Event. I don't care about R-Truth. He's not anywhere near the level of where he and Orton and Cena should be. I'm sorry. I like R-Truth, the person. He's had a body of work that I respect. But for fuck's sake, why would if Vince McMahon did this, do you know how on fire the internet would be over why this being done? The way that it was done.
The thing is that this is something that will get heel heat.
Yeah, but not on the right people. Not onto John Cena. That doesn't help John. And John got cheered after all of this. So it didn't even serve the purpose it was trying to serve.
Here's the thing. It would get him cheered if he did the thing with he attacking R-Truth afterwards. That's why they probably did at the press conference.
Yeah, but not to ruin the last time that Orton and John are gonna. This bothered me, man. This matchup was great.
It also doesn't help that the fans in St. Louis, of all places, which is supposed to be Randy Orton's hometown, cheered their hero getting beat.
They were still split. It does not matter what John Cena does. He's going to have that split reaction the rest of his career, which is important.
Well, for the amount of time that's left in it.
Yeah, well, but that's actually probably the most important part of John Cena's run, because he does the heel promo, the show goes off the air, and then the camera comes back up, and this I find to be very fascinating. He looks around, he looks at everything, St. Louis starts chanting, "Thank you, Cena." He leaves the ring, he looks at the belt, he looks at the fans, and in that moment, you can tell that his confidence in his convictions of the past 2 months are shaken. He might have given up on the fans, but the fans have still not given up on John Cena, and John doesn't know how to process that, considering what he gave up for that 17th belt. And that moment of insecurity is going to be crucial to John Cena's arc going forward. And I like where they placed it, but I wish that they had put that on the main show for people who would have turned the show off after the camera faded to black, because that's a really important part of what John's doing.
Well, let's go back then. In this case, given what was going on, and you being the magnificent booker that you are, Sean,
Go ahead.
How would you book the finish with John Cena and Randy Orton?
How would I have booked it? Just not have R-Truth be in it. But
how would you book John Cena and Randy Orton? Because you're right. There's too many referee bumps. There's too many interference spots. How would you book it to where John can cheat but still kind of get the message across?
Well, you could do all that you did, but with one ref bump. I mean, I hate to not give Orton his moment, but you could have still done that with the one original referee and skipped getting a second referee and doing 2 table spots and unveiling Chad Gable's piss bottle. You could have cut all of that out and R-Truth and achieved basically the same outcome. You know, and to me, this is the same problem I had with the Mania match. The matchup was great. You take Travis Scott and The Rock out of that equation, and the matchup is phenomenal. But they add this it's that one sour tomato, that one tomato that's moldy, that ruins the entire batch of tomatoes. It's just that one piece that just spoils it. And if this is what the gimmick is going to be for John Cena matches, I'm not looking forward to this, but that will ruin wrestling for me. I will not debate that.
So that's the thing, is that can they redeem this gimmick at this point, or is it kind of already gotten off the shark?
Well, my problem is I'm interested in Cena's wavering confidence, but I'm not as thrilled about John Cena's title reign as I was when he won Elimination Chamber. You know, it's rapidly losing steam for me, this whole heel run, and I'm hoping that they can capture some zest instead of pushing Punk and Cena for Money in the Bank just because it's the thing to do. And or you know, I'm afraid they're going to hotshot a lot of these feuds, and it's really going to feel less special when it finally comes to pass that Cena loses this belt. So, you know, I'm just concerned right now about the main event of WWE and the way that things are going, because like you said, Sky, they've cooled off and they need something going that's keeping a through line. And my confidence is a little shaken right now about the main event scene of WWE and the way that they're doing it. And I could be proven wrong.
To go back to what I was saying earlier, this is all The Rock's fault.
Yes.
The Rock's interference
I'm with you there.
This basically caused the main thing that the WWE... Listen, if you had told me back at the Royal Rumble that John Cena was going to be the champion and a heel champion at that, I would have said, blow me, not happen.
You're out of your fucking mind,
and then
bro.
When they did Elimination Chamber, all three of us got so excited we raised our scores for Elimination Chambers artificially just because of that angle.
Yeah. True.
And not that Travis Scott himself wasn't important to the angle at Mania, but it needed Dwayne to be there just to add a little bit extra to the whole screwing thing, or at least an explanation from John why he's working with The Rock. It could be just a simple thing of, you know what, I've decided I've been working so hard doing things the right way, and you fans are not appreciative of it. I'm going to work with someone who does know what it's like to be at the top and who does take the easy way because I don't want to work hard anymore. I want to be the best or something like that, and have The Rock's corporate power. And what you could do with that is that you would have The Rock give resources to John. Maybe John can't be there initially, right? Sorry. Maybe The Rock can't be there on his own, but maybe he can send John Cena gifts. Or maybe he can give him wrestlers or entourages to help him out.
Like a golden egg?
No, not that golden egg, you fucking...
No, that was a gift from The Rock. That was a gift from
Vince McMahon and $1 million contract for a movie.
Yeah, that was a gift from Dwayne. It was $100 million, $100 million from Dwayne Johnson and then The Rock. Anyway, I'm sorry. Continue. But
the point is that The Rock, by inserting himself into the story at at Chamber, basically requires him his continuation participation in order to make things interesting. But because of the fact that he is not being involved and he's not actively enrolled in the story, it hurts everything. John as a heel is great, but we still don't really know why he even worked with The Rock in the first place. And we don't even know what John Cena's like. Yes, we know his motive. We know what he's doing, right? It also does not help that John's wrestling is kind of getting worse.
Well, as it would for anyone of that age, right? I'm not trying to knock that. I mean, honestly, his wrestling is the least of my issues. You know, John has been holding himself, been doing fine. It's not John's fault that this is not working the way that they pictured it in their little heads. But the fact is, this was never really the plan. So they're kind of seat of the pants in it because, like you said, Sky, Dwayne just throws his dick around whenever he fucking feels like it, and all of a sudden everyone's caught with their pants down and having to rewrite everything, kind of like how somebody else used to do that to WWE scripts. You know, they would come up with something and then somebody else would come around and change most of it, and, you know, and that's where we're at. And it started at Bad Blood, and I have a feeling it's only going to get worse. And it's something to where even when we don't want to mention The Rock, his influence is hurting these shows too without him even being involved in it. And that's going to come to a peak eventually. But in any case, let's get to ratings and wrap this shindig up before we hit the 2-hour mark here. Your overall rating, Skylar, for Backlash 2025.
Shouldn't we read Joshua's notes first?
Oh, you're right. I totally forgot about the guy. Well, see, that's what happens when you give somebody else the notes when you're supposed to just leave them with the guy that you send them to initially. So, maybe sometimes you get forgotten about, so maybe don't fuck with the host. Match number 5. John Cena versus...
You're going to work yourself into a shoot, brother.
John Cena versus Randy Orton. For the
we have another ACPW versus... We're going to get another CIW versus
TAW, yeah, part 2, Electric Boogaloo. But, yeah, you want to talk about feuds that never die. This was my favorite match of the entire show and one of the best Cena versus Orton matches that they ever had. Was it obscenely overbooked? Yes. Was it fun? Yes. Orton in St. Louis is basically CM Punk in Chicago, and the crowd going nuts for everything they did was so damn entertaining. And while there were numerous ref bumps at points, at least the second and third ones were very believable. Jeff Jarrett would nod in approval if only he weren't locked in Tony Khan's basement.
No.
It's sadly true. Although Jeff Jarrett's not that unused to Ron Killings interfering in matches. Also, here is me congratulating myself for almost correctly predicting the finish. Good job, me. Me is good, yay. R-Truth getting involved doesn't bother me at all because A, in kayfabe it makes sense, and B, they have been teasing it. Ignore the other 2 naysayers on this podcast, for I am correct at times. I don't have much to say about this match as far as detail, as it kind of is every Cena Orton match you've ever seen. But it changed dynamic and the white hot crowd made it memorable. And better than what we got at Mania. Fuck you, Dwayne, you not showing up to work storyline fuck-upping bitch. I almost said bitches,
Bitching?
but... Well, I almost said bitches like he's multiple people, but it's him and his HGH can fuck off.
Has to be multiple people.
That's right. Well, he's taking enough steroids for multiple people. Conclusion. This may be a controversial opinion, but Backlash this year was better than Mania. I don't disagree with that. This was a fun show. Well, I somewhat disagree with that, but that's a story for another time. Fuck you, Dwayne, all caps. I agree with that. My main issue is there was interference of some kind in 4 of the 5 matches, which is lazy and repetitive. Triple H relies on that way too much, and he needs to find more creative ways to do shit than just, fuck it, interfere 100 times, I don't give a fuck. Outside of that complaint, I very much enjoyed this show, especially the last 2 matches. The last 2 matches were tremendous, and the shorter length of this pay-per-view was greatly appreciated. Agreed. I give the show a solid 8.5 out of 10. I'd go 9, but Trips needs to relax as far as the constant interference is concerned. Thus ends my notes for this occasion. Until next time, cheerio, you wretched swine. Now, Skylar, what are your ratings for this match?
Well, overall, this show, to me, it tried to rebuild the energy that has been lost due to the road to WrestleMania. I don't know if they quite captured what they were going for, but they certainly tried. I liked some things, but nothing is going to make me go back and be like, oh, I need to rewatch it again. And there are some dishonorable mentions for certain things. You're right. The biggest problem right now with WWE is that it feels like Triple H is now doing Triple H booking, but the problem with Triple H booking is that Triple H booking is Triple H booking. You've seen it one time, you've seen it too many times. So I come out of this show more negative than I thought I was going into it, but when you look back, there's a lot of things that could just be redone, that could be better. And honestly, I think this show, it's a 6, but it easily could be lower if certain things had gotten worse.
Yeah, you see, it's funny to me because I think that at first I rated this very highly, but the more that we talk this out, I think this show is more indicative of some of the long-term problems that WWE is going to face under the new creative. And I think part of it is on Triple H. A good chunk of it is on The Rock. Dwayne is very much accountable for this, and I'm going to keep holding him accountable to it every time we do a podcast. You know, I have a no Dwayne on my television rule. If Dwayne shows up, I'm shutting Peacock off. He's not getting my attention. But I will gladly come out of here and bitch about it and about him. But that being said, every booker hits a wall at some point where they've exhausted their creativity and now they have to find new ways to be creative. I have hit that wall. Skylar, I know you have hit that wall. It's why we're not doing more fantasy booking. It's, you know, it ran its course. That's the challenge of every booker, is what do you do then? And that's hard. And they're going to have to figure something out, because it is going to be something that they are going to have to focus on and figure out a way to overcome in the coming months. Now, that being said, the show is fairly good, but there's more work to be done. This wasn't a bad show by any means. I enjoyed it. But can I say that this show was on the level of what Mania was? And kind of. But that's not necessarily the compliment that it really might seem at first. I'm going to split the diff, not exactly, but I'm going to split the diff, and I'm going to give this a 7 out of 10. It was good, but there's some concern. I have concerns. And we will see whether those concerns will be valid in the near future. But Sky...
Right, because the next show is your favorite, Money in the Bank.
Great.
And that's going to be hard to do, because how can you possibly make Money in the Bank interesting at this point?
Yeah, and considering what you do with Money in the Bank now, I'm so over the concept. I'm going to try and keep an open mind with it. Maybe if LA Knight wins the briefcase, I will not be as upset about it. But, folks...
But who wins the women's one?
Oh, God, who cares? Bianca, maybe.
Oh,
Bianca, maybe, really? But I don't know.
Jade Cargill.
Yeah, oh, God. Well, folks, you're going to hear about it unless I have a little bitch fit and decide to quit on it like I did last year. But if that doesn't happen and I keep my big boy pants on, then we will have ourselves a great Money in the Bank review, but we may be doing a little bit more in between. So stay tuned for that. Skylar, it's great to have you back, and thank you once again for giving us a pay-per-view review worth reviewing.
My pleasure.
And thank you all for joining us as always, and we are going to take our first commercial break. Thank you all for joining us, and we will be right back right after this.